Having worked in the underworld for 10,000 years, the god of death finally granted me a chance to be reborn and change my fate. Without hesitation, I chose the most tragic destiny of the 7 killings, destined to be abandoned by family, betrayed by love, and reduced to a lowly slave, all because someone forcibly swapped fates with me in my past life. This lifetime I deliberately changed my fate to a wretched one just to gift it to her, in my 10,000th year working in the underworld. The god of death tossed me a fate-altering ledger, which I cradled in my palms like treasure, because carrying this ledger into the reincarnation mirror would allow me to live another life. The soul guide smiled warmly as she congratulated me. You're taking the book of fate alteration into the mirror of reincarnation, so you won't need my soup this time. Come visit more often when you have time. I present a red spider lily to the soul guide. The soul guide is momentarily stunned. It's worth noting that although these flowers bloom abundantly along the river of forgetfulness, they wither instantly once plucked. The one in my hand, however, remains in full bloom. You'd actually give me something the god of death gave you. I smiled without saying a word, watching the soul guide carefully tuck it behind her ear. Her wrinkled face instantly transforms into the stunning beauty she possessed in life, drawing envious gazes from all the ghosts. I open the book of fate alteration and sign my name in blood, Jiang Shuyan. The book of fate transformation emitted golden light that enveloped me, as lines of precious destinies emerged for me to choose from: destiny of an empress, destiny of a royal consort, the world's first female merchant monarch, the first female power minister. Each one was an exceptionally noble fate. The crowd of ghosts awaiting reincarnation gazed at me eagerly, wishing they could immediately go massage death's feet. Because this fate-altering book not only requires the use of the mirror of reincarnation, which opens once every 100,000 years, but also consumes 100,000 years of the god of death's cultivation to forge a single volume, but throughout his 10 million years of reign, the god of death has made an exception only once. For me, the chance is slim. The destinies recorded in the fate-altering book are ranked by the brilliance of their hues. The brighter the color, the nobler the destiny, the duller the shade, the bleaker the fate. Finally, my hand landed on a black fate, causing all the ghosts to gasp in shock. She must be insane. This is the cruelest fate of 7 killings, destined to be abandoned by kin, betrayed by love, deceived by all, reduced to a lowly slave, afflicted with vile diseases, and ultimately to die a violent death. Yet without hesitation, I took this fate of 7 killings and stepped into the mirror of rebirth. Returning to the day of my 16th birthday in my past life, I was Jiang Shuyan, the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's household, peerless in both talent and beauty. She was the foremost noble lady of the capital. Her betrothed was Jian Yuan, the sole heir of the Marquis of Weiyuan. We had known each other since childhood and were deeply compatible. On the day of my coming-of-age ceremony, he came to propose marriage, and I waited joyfully to become his wife. But a woman named Jiang Xinyan, who claimed to be the true legitimate daughter of the minister's household, came knocking at our door. She said that when my mother gave birth to me, the wet nurse had switched us. In a blood test, her blood blended with that of my parents. I don't believe it, but my blood failed to blend with theirs. Everything I had was taken from me overnight, and my fiancé became hers. Deeply infatuated with her, I desperately tried to prove I was the legitimate daughter, only to be scolded by my parents for being ungrateful. At the woman's instigation, my parents married me off to a wealthy merchant. In reality, he was a hypocritical opportunist who exploited his connection to the Prime Minister's household to secretly engage in corrupt schemes, selling official positions and harming others. I knew this would bring disaster to the Prime Minister's residence and wanted to expose him. Yet the woman who stole my identity appeared at this moment and revealed my intentions to him. The merchant was furious and, to punish me, passed me from one bed to another, from noble royalty to vicious bandits. After I contracted a filthy disease, they falsely accused me of adultery. Overnight, I went from being a noble lady to a woman scorned by all. My father, who valued reputation above all, was ashamed of me and severed all ties. During my illness, not a single physician came to treat me. I was abandoned in a derelict mansion, where I succumbed to my sickness and died. Afterward, my body was wrapped in a straw mat and thrown onto a filthy street, where even beggars desecrated my corpse until it rotted away. Only after death did I learn that I was destined for a life of comfort, harmony with my soulmate, and lifelong love. A golden fate. She stole my fate, deliberately tormenting me to death to conceal the will of heaven, ensuring my resentment would bind me, leaving me unable to reincarnate in this life. If she wants my fate, she can take it. It's not like it was ever a good one anyway, uncle, aunt. Today I am here not only to celebrate Xu Yan's coming-of-age ceremony but also to discuss our lifelong commitment. Snapping back to reality, I heard the voice of my fiancé, Jian Yuan. He is the sole heir of the Marquis of Weiyuan. His father and elder brothers died in battle when he was young, and he inherited the title at an early age. He came to propose on my coming-of-age day, wishing to continue the family line for the Marquisate as soon as possible, but after wandering in the underworld for 10,000 years, witnessing countless evil spirits, much of my human emotions had faded. When I saw my former lover again, I felt not a trace of affection, only overwhelming hatred for the one who stole my fate and crushed me like an ant. It's perfect that your matter is settled today. Double happiness comes together, bringing joy to all. My father is Jiang Huai, the powerful minister second only to the emperor. He raised a satisfied smile, and Jian Yuan immediately knelt down. Uncle, although His Majesty has already promised the marriage, I still wish to formally propose to you. Please grant me your permission to marry Xu Yan as my wife, entrusting her to my care and continuing our lineage. All the surrounding guests wore expressions of nothing but blessings. No, you can't, at this very moment. A woman's clear and beautiful voice rang out loudly. The person I've been waiting for, she has arrived. Who dares to be so insolent at my daughter's coming-of-age ceremony? Jiang Huai's expression darkened, exuding authority without showing anger, yet the woman's appearance made him freeze momentarily. She was Jiang Xinyan, the one who came to exchange her life for mine. This marriage must never be finalized, because Jiang Xuyan is not the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's residence at all. She's nothing but a complete thief who stole my identity. Jiang Xinyan's angry words caused an uproar among the crowd. Stop your nonsense. My mother, Lady Wei, shielded me with her body. How dare you question the identity of the Prime Minister's daughter? Jiang Xinyan stepped forward and looked at my mother with tearful, pitiful eyes. Mother, look at my face. Doesn't it resemble yours when you were young? I resemble my mother by only 30%, yet Jiang Xinyan's face bears 70% resemblance to our mother. When tears well up in her eyes, she becomes even more captivating, adding another 10%, when we stood side by side. Everyone immediately drew comparisons. It seems this woman resembles the Prime Minister's wife more. Could there be some hidden reason? I sneered inwardly. Since Jiang Xinyan was determined to swap fates with me, she naturally would have made preparations. With her true identity, how difficult could it be to change her face? If you say so, do you have any evidence? Mother was also deeply puzzled by the young woman before her, who bore a striking resemblance to her. I waited quietly, feeling a sudden tightness in my hand. It was Jian Yuan holding it. He gazed at me affectionately, as if saying that no matter what happened, he would marry no one but me. I silently broke free from his embrace. In my previous life, I met such a tragic end. Although Jian Yuan wasn't the mastermind behind it, he was still partly responsible. I know you won't believe me easily, but there's one thing you can do that will prove I'm telling the truth. Jiang Xinyan gazed around, her eyes flashing with fervor when they landed on Jian Yuan's face, but she quickly composed herself. A blood test. At these 4 words, the crowd fell silent. Indeed, it was the simplest solution. A simple blood test will clearly reveal the relationship, but I know this blood test is bound to succeed. Once her blood blends with my parents', she will completely take everything from me, including my lineage, my parents, and my fiancé. Preposterous. The Prime Minister and his wife are noble figures. How could they possibly suffer harm based on the mere words of an outsider like you? It's not that you can't. You just don't dare. Jiang Xinyan looked at the speaking man with certainty and said, if I remember correctly, you're one of Jiang Xuyan's suitors. There's no need for you to be in such a hurry to speak up for her, because the truth is far more vicious than you imagine. Having experienced my past life and knowing her next move, I curled my lips slightly. Fine, then let's verify kinship with a blood test. With my agreement. My parents' expressions subtly changed. They were already puzzled by Jiang Xinyan's sudden appearance, but had only reprimanded her out of respect for my presence. Now that I agreed, they naturally wouldn't refuse and also wanted to verify whether this matter was true or false. However, Jiang Xinyan's eyes flickered with a trace of doubt, surprised that I had agreed so readily, but she quickly dismissed it. No matter what tricks I had, they were merely the methods of a mortal. Soon, 2 bowls of plain water were brought and placed before the elderly couple. Without hesitation, the elderly couple each pricked their fingers and let their blood drip into the water. Jiang Xinyan immediately followed suit. Watching the situation in the bowls, my expression changed drastically. and I couldn't suppress my emotions as I cried out, "How is that possible?" Of course, I was pretending, just like in my previous life. The blood in the two bowls gradually merged. I deliberately feigned a shocked expression for Jiang Xinyan to see, making her even more smug. As the blood merged, I could feel a warmth on my waist, where a peach blossom birthmark had been since I was born. At this moment, my fate and Jiang Xinyan's were swapped. Jiang Xinyan, seeing this situation, had tears in her eyes. "Father, mother, you must believe me now, I truly am your biological daughter." Jiang Xinyan's appearance was no less beautiful than mine, and her tearful expression was delicate and pitiable. Father and mother were stunned by this turn of events, yet they remained reluctant to acknowledge it. I grew up under their care, always obedient and filial, the apple of their eye that they took great pride in. Family bonds aren't something Jiang Xinyan, a stranger who's just been recognized as their daughter, can easily replace. Moreover, it's just a bowl of water. Folk wisdom also says this method isn't very reliable. Mother, back when you gave birth to me, you were exhausted and weak, falling into a deep sleep right after delivering me. Only the wet nurse Jiang was by your side, and she swapped her own child with me, making me suffer in her child's place for 16 years. Jiang Xinyan thought they still didn't believe her and wiped her tears. The peach blossom birthmark on my waist is also proof. At her reminder, memories of the day Wei gave birth resurfaced. At that time, she was utterly exhausted and only managed to lift her eyes for a glance at her child. It was a daughter, born adorable, but how could a newborn's features have any distinguishing characteristics? She only remembered the child had a peach blossom birthmark on their waist. Coming back to her senses, the mother hurriedly called over the nanny beside her. "Quick, take her to see if a blood test might not be entirely reliable. A birthmark couldn't be faked." Jiang Xinyan curled her lips into a smile, gave me a triumphant look, and then followed the nanny away. Mother looked at me eagerly and said, "Sure, is the birthmark on your waist?" Faced with this question, I remained silent and did not rush to answer. Soon, the matron and Jiang Xinyan came out. Seeing the matron's solemn nod, Madame Wei immediately understood that the other party might indeed have a birthmark. Jiang Xinyan looked at me triumphantly and said, "You liar, if you want to prove yourself, you'll have to show the same evidence as I do. If you don't have it, then you're a fraud. Matron, go check if she has one on her waist." After speaking, she knelt before her parents and said, "Father, mother, your daughter was kept in the dark all this time. It wasn't until I discovered these letters that I learned the truth about my identity." From her bosom, she pulled out stacks of letters, all allegedly handwritten correspondences between me and Nurse Jiang. The letters clearly stated that I knew my identity was false and instructed Jiang to prevent her from coming to the capital to claim kinship. That Jiang woman abused me physically and verbally all these years. It was her just deserts when she recently fell off a cliff and died unexpectedly during an outing. Only then was I able to find these letters. Had it not been for this, I fear I would have been sold into a brothel. Jiang Xinyan pointed at me with absolute certainty. She's always known she's a fake, and she even tried to harm me. If you don't believe me, look at her. The birthmark is fake too. It must be gone by now. As soon as these words were spoken, my parents' expressions changed. If I had been unaware, there might still have been innocence and affection between us. But if I knew, that would be another matter. Under mother's gaze, the nanny approached me. I spoke first. "Nanny, there's no need, I don't have a birthmark. To be precise, I once did. In my previous life, I confidently believed I had the birthmark and submitted to the matron's inspection. Little did I know that the peach blossom birthmark on my waist vanished the moment she swapped our fates. I insisted I had it, but the matron couldn't see it, confirming me as a lying deceiver. That Jiang family wet nurse was already dead, leaving no witness. While Jiang Xinyan's forged letters perfectly matched my handwriting, my verification instead proved that I was a knowing fraud, the mastermind behind it all. To prevent Jiang Xinyan's plan from succeeding, I immediately knelt before my parents. "Father, mother, these letters were not written by me, but I don't know why the handwriting matches mine. If you wanted to do it, there are plenty of ways to conceal your actions." Jiang Xinyan couldn't wait to prove me a fraud. This way, I would lose all protection from the Prime Minister's residence and sever my ties with my parents. Instead, I directly knelt and kowtowed to my father and mother. "Father, mother, your daughter truly knew nothing about this matter, otherwise, would never have agreed so readily to her request for a blood test to verify kinship, having grown up under your care and been raised by your own hands. Do you truly think so poorly of your daughter's character?" Jiang Huai looked at his daughter, his thoughts swirling. then turned his gaze to the woman who bore a 70% resemblance to his wife, although all signs indicated that the daughter he had raised for 16 years might be an impostor, but he was, after all, the Prime Minister, having served in office for decades. How could he not know that false accusations and frame-ups were common in this world? To admit that the daughter he had raised was an impostor, that would indirectly admit to one's own misconduct. After all, a crooked stick will have a crooked shadow. Finally, he spoke. Sure, I believe you're not that kind of person. There must be some misunderstanding here, uncle. I also believe that Shu'er is the kindest, gentlest, and most sensible woman I've ever known. She would never do such a thing. Ji On Yuan also spoke up for me. Jiang Xinyan's gaze never left Ji On Yuan, her jealousy nearly overwhelming her. Soon, she turned her eyes to me, filled with venomous resentment, as if she wanted to skin me alive. Today's incident was unexpected. It was supposed to be my coming-of-age ceremony, but it became Jiang Xinyan's. Her beauty was no less than mine, and after changing into new attire with the help of her maids, she looked stunningly divine. Even my former admirers were momentarily dazzled, only shifting their gaze back to me when I began my performance. I am the most noble lady in the capital. At 13, I played a piece before the emperor that summoned thousands of butterflies fluttering their wings, delighting his majesty and solidifying my reputation. In my past life, I fell into Jiang Xinyan's trap and did not perform at the coming-of-age ceremony. This time, Jian Yuan's gaze lingered on me, and she naturally couldn't bear it. I played a piece, so she insisted on dancing as well. Her dancing posture gracefully attracted thousands of butterflies to encircle her. The crowd was mesmerized, and even Jian Yuan froze momentarily, yet my gaze fell upon an unremarkable-looking man at the edge of the banquet. No one spoke to him, nor did anyone glance his way, as if he were invisible. Only I knew this man's identity was extraordinary. In my past life, he only left after seeing me fall out of favor with the Prime Minister, but in this lifetime, with circumstances changed, he seemed prepared to wait and observe. After the coming-of-age ceremony concluded, I returned to my courtyard, while Jiang Xinyan recounted to her parents the hardships she had endured over the years. A swapped child, mistreated by her adoptive mother for many years. Not only could she maintain such beauty, but she also mastered such graceful dance moves. Yet no one found it strange, but I knew better. Jiang Xinyan must still have tricks up her sleeve since she failed to drive me away. That night, just as I was about to turn off the lamp and sleep, the matron forcefully pushed open my door. The matron glared at me coldly. Young miss, the madam requests your presence. I calmly put on my outer garment and headed to my mother's courtyard. Upon arriving at my mother's courtyard, I was immediately met with her questioning. Shu Yan, do you have anything to explain? That's right. Jiang Xinyan had been poisoned, lying on the sick bed. She had just finished pouring out her sorrows to her father and mother when, after drinking the silver ear and lotus seed soup brought from the kitchen, she vomited blood and fell unconscious. I knew at once that this was a setup to frame me for poisoning. Before I could explain, the maids and servants knelt down to testify. After dinner, only the eldest young lady entered the kitchen and even touched the second young lady's soup. Father looked at me with disappointment. The unfamiliar maidservant beside me immediately stepped forward to search my person and actually found a packet of powder hidden at my waist, which she hastily handed to the physician for examination. After inspecting it, the physician confirmed, "This is indeed the poison that afflicted the second young lady." Those words sealed my guilt outright. Father delivered a heavy slap across my face. "I've taught you for decades, yet I've raised such a venomous creature. Even if you're not our biological child, we've never mistreated you. Xinyan is our own daughter. How could you be so eager to eliminate her at once?" I didn't defend myself, because I couldn't produce evidence to prove it wasn't me. Although I hadn't left my room after nightfall, the maids and servants weren't lying either. Someone entered the kitchen and poisoned Jiang Xinyan. Though it wasn't me, they disguised themselves as me. False charges are easy to fabricate. If I were the poisoner, why would I carry the poison on me, waiting for matron to search my person? My father, after all, is a powerful minister with brains, but he couldn't withstand Jiang Xinyan vomiting blood on the bed. The physician urgently said, "Eldest miss, this poison is compounded with 7 flowers and 7 insects. It requires a specific antidote formula. You must produce it quickly, or second miss will lose her life." At that moment, a maidservant hurried in with her head bowed. "Master, madam, this was found in eldest miss's room. It might be the antidote." I looked at the unfamiliar maidservant and sneered inwardly. The physician sniffed the medicine and immediately administered it to Jiang Xinyan. Her complexion improved almost instantly, my father's gaze upon me became indescribably complex, yet I couldn't blame my parents for lacking the ability to distinguish right from wrong. Because they were merely mortals, Jiang Xinyan's methods were beyond mortal perception. She knelt before her father and said, "Father, mother," with everyone pointing fingers now, "I don't know where this poison came from, nor do I have evidence to prove my innocence, but this is a family matter. If it escalates to the imperial court, His Majesty will surely think father incapable of handling domestic affairs, which would harm father's career." Father was stunned, never expecting me to say such words. "I thank you both for your years of care and upbringing. But now the Prime Minister's residence can only accommodate one legitimate daughter. I do not covet the wealth and status of this household. Today, I bid farewell to you both. May you take care of yourselves and live long, healthy, peaceful, and joyful lives." My voluntary request to leave left father and mother at a loss for how to punish me, a young maiden who has just come of age, without the protection of her family. Leaving alone in the dead of night is no different from seeking death. Merely staying out overnight is enough to ruin my reputation. Mother was somewhat reluctant, but Jiang Xinyan looked pale, and she could do nothing but watch me leave the Prime Minister's residence. Just like in my previous life, overnight I lost everything. The rain poured heavily from the sky, drenching me as I wandered like a malevolent ghost through the dark alleyways late at night. A drunken man grinned and grabbed at me, dragging me into a deeper alley as I screamed helplessly. Unable to resist, in a desperate bid to preserve my chastity, I smashed my head against a stone wall. The sight of blood gushing from my head shocked the drunken man into sudden sobriety. He stood up, cursing and spitting out the words, "What bad luck," before hastily fleeing the scene. After he left, the man from the banquet appeared and checked my breath, confirming that I had died. Confusion flickered in his eyes, as if puzzled by how quickly I had died. But since the fate had indeed been swapped, he left reassured. After his departure, a woman in red appeared by my side, her expression calm yet her eyes concealing turbulent emotions. Tempered for 10,000 years in the Avicii hell just for this day, I leisurely rose from my own corpse, smiling faintly at the woman. "God of death, the real show has only just begun." As a wicked ghost who endured 10,000 years in the Avicii hell, how could I possibly care about the fleeting life and death of this mere mortal flesh? Isn't Jiang Xinyan fond of my fate? Then let her experience in this lifetime whether my fate is truly good or not. In the Prime Minister's residence, after all the servants had left, the unconscious Jiang Xinyan opened her eyes. Looking at the man before her, she asked hopefully, "How is she? Was she really driven out?" The man paused. "She's dead, dead." So quickly, Jiang Xinyan also found it hard to believe. Yes, probably after the life exchange, she had no fate left, so shortly after leaving the Prime Minister's residence, she encountered a drunken bandit who nearly violated her, and she ended up killing herself by crashing into something. You can rest assured. Upon hearing this, Jiang Xinyan smiled triumphantly. "I told you, a mere ant like her isn't worthy of competing with me." What a joke. The life exchange was successful. I must return now. Stay here and take good care of yourself. The man instructed. "Thank you, don't worry. Once I safely navigate this lifetime's love tribulation with him, I will marry you. Please keep this hidden from father for me." Jiang Xinyan gently reassured the man. After the man left, she settled down to plan with peace of mind. This lifetime was Jian Yuan's repayment of a destined love bond with Jiang Shuyan. According to their fated destiny, Jiang Shuyan and Jian Yuan would grow old together. How dare Jiang Shuyan, a mere ant, be worthy? Jian Yuan is the man she has her eyes on. No one else shall lay a finger on him. Jiang Xinyan slept soundly, dreaming of Jiang Shuyan's marriage falling into her lap overnight. I watched her quietly from the rooftop, hoping she would enjoy what was to come. I was driven out of the house overnight, and news of my death at the hands of a lustful bandit spread throughout the capital by early morning the next day. Jian Yuan refused to believe it and rushed into the Prime Minister's residence to seek answers, only to find my lifeless body. He knelt beside me in agony. My parents urged him to restrain his grief. Jiang Xinyan walked gently to his side. "Young Marquis, please accept my condolences. Although elder sister has passed, I'm still here. I'll always stay by your side, even the marriage alliance between our families." Jian Yuan looked at Jiang Xinyan in disbelief. "You want to take her place? She and I grew up together since childhood. Do you think just anyone could replace her?" Jiang Xinyan was stunned. Hadn't Jian Yuan just yesterday given her an appreciative glance? According to fate, even if he doesn't like her now, he won't reject her. It's just the death of a beautiful woman. She's no worse than Jiang Shuyan. The next moment, Jian Yuan grabbed Jiang Xinyan by the throat. It's you. If it weren't for you, Xu Yan wouldn't have died. A suffocating sensation overwhelmed Jiang Xinyan, who was in extreme pain, as the servants of the Prime Minister's residence quickly intervened to separate the two. Young Marquis, this is the Prime Minister's residence, not the Marquis of Wei Yuan's estate. Even if you're venting your anger, you shouldn't take it out on Xinyan. My father was also filled with deep regret upon hearing news of my death. Jian Yuan released his grip and looked around the entire Prime Minister's residence. Ever since this woman returned, there's been blood tests to verify kinship and driving Xu Yan away. She's the truly malicious one. Can't you all see that? As these words fell, silence enveloped the entire Prime Minister's residence, and the gazes directed at Jiang Xinyan were filled with doubt and reproach. No, I didn't, Jiang Xinyan explained in panic. No, something's wrong. According to her plan, the vicious impostor who stole her identity should have been Jiang Shuyan. The one who should be despised and rejected was supposed to be Jiang Shuyan. Pride surged within her, and Jiang Xinyan blurted out without thinking, "Why are you all looking at me like that? Stop staring, don't you know I'm—" The next moment, she collapsed to the ground in agony. Watching her state, I curled my lips into a smirk. The heavens hold the book of fate exchange, while the earth keeps the ledger of destiny alteration. Whether it's exchanging fates or altering destinies, both are celestial secrets. Those who change or exchange fates must never reveal their true identities to mortals. Though mortals cannot hear, the book of fate will punish those who attempt to disclose celestial secrets. Like swallowing bitter herbs in silence, unable to voice their suffering. Is the pain already this intense at the mere beginning? There are still decades of life ahead. Jian Yuan refused to believe my death was accidental and sought someone to investigate the true cause of my demise. Now that I possess magical power, though I cannot reveal it openly, what difficulty is there in making some moves, just like what that man did when helping Jiang Xinyan swap my fate? And Jiang Xinyan no longer has any helpers. A day in heaven equals a year on earth. Even if they wanted to return, it would be years later, now that she's in a mortal body without any magical power. She can only endure it. Soon, Jian Yuan found the drunkard who had attempted to assault me that night. Under the influence of my magic, the man confessed that he had acted deliberately. Someone had paid him to wait outside the Prime Minister's residence for a woman to leave. At that time, he would pretend to be drunk and tarnish the woman's reputation. Who would have thought the woman would rather die than submit? And she ended up killing herself by crashing into something. Jian Yuan, in a fit of rage, hacked the man to death. Although casting this spell altered the man's fate, it added to my karmic burden. But this man wasn't destined for longevity anyway, and since I'm an evil spirit, I couldn't care less about such trivial karma. All I wanted was for Jian Yuan to firmly believe that Jiang Xinyan was the mastermind behind my death, because in my past life, that's exactly how I died. The difference is that back then I departed covered in disgrace, whereas now I leave with my innocence intact, becoming Jian Yuan's eternally unattainable white moonlight. At this moment, the imperial decree arranging the marriage has already arrived at both the Marquis's residence and the Prime Minister's mansion. Jian Yuan is the sole heir of the Marquis's household. His father and brothers died on the battlefield, leaving him alone to uphold the family's honor as martyrs of loyalty, whether to pacify the battlefield or to stabilize the court. His Majesty showed him exceptional favor. He had already petitioned His Majesty for our marriage before my coming-of-age ceremony, declaring his intentions for me. With the imperial decree granting our marriage, divorce is forbidden between husband and wife, and no third party may interfere unless there are issues concerning the continuation of the lineage. Anyone daring to send concubines to Jian Yuan's side would be defying the imperial will, a capital offense punishable by death. I am already dead, and the emperor's marriage decree did not specify any names. It was addressed to the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's household. This marriage will undoubtedly fall upon Jiang Xinyan. Upon receiving the imperial decree, Jiang Xinyan quickly forgot about Jian Yuan's reproach from earlier in the day. Filled with joy, she thought that as long as they married, love would naturally grow over time, and the two of them would surely live in harmony and happiness. For this reason, she even wrote a letter expressing her admiration and longing for Jian Yuan. Jian Yuan initially wanted to defy the imperial decree, but upon reading this letter, he realized he himself was the prime culprit behind my death. If Jiang Xinyan hadn't been infatuated with him, she wouldn't have rushed to take action against me. Thus, he accepted the imperial decree arranging his marriage. The wedding date was set 3 months later, and Jiang Xinyan also prepared to settle down peacefully awaiting her marriage. Unfortunately, the hasty marriage arrangements also had many drawbacks, such as the wedding dress originally embroidered by my mother for me. Although Jiang Xinyan had swapped my fate, her inherent personality remained her own. How could she accept something that was merely picking up crumbs from another's table? Thus, she rejected this wedding dress. In my previous life, I was still alive at this time, and she was originally going to use this wedding dress, so my mother spent a fortune hiring embroiderers to make one for her. Now that I'm dead, making a grand display by embroidering wedding clothes would be nothing but extravagance and waste. After scolding her for being unreasonable, mother still altered my wedding dress for her use. Late at night, mother recalled my obedience and gentleness when I was alive, and suddenly realized, what does it matter if we're blood related? I was the child she raised. How could all these years of mother-daughter affection be fake? That night, how could she have been so bewitched as to actually agree to let me leave the mansion, just to give Jiang Xinyan an explanation? The wedding gown was soaked with mother's tears. The more guilty she felt toward me, the less patience she had when looking at Jiang Xinyan. Moreover, Jiang Xinyan's accomplice had already left. The spell he cast on Jiang Xinyan will gradually lose its effect. In the coming days, Jiang Xinyan will slowly revert to her original face. I can't wait to see the show. Life in the Prime Minister's residence is not easy for Jiang Xinyan. Though she may appear beautiful, her temperament is nothing like mine. During my lifetime, I governed servants with a combination of kindness and authority, clearly distinguishing rewards from punishments. Most of the time, I was gentle, and if servants faced difficulties at home, I would offer assistance. Jiang Xinyan was inherently spoiled and arrogant, having been pampered since childhood. Moreover, due to her status, she believed from birth that all beings were divided into hierarchies. She lacked empathy for servants and would reprimand or punish them at the slightest dissatisfaction. Whenever servants in the mansion mentioned, "The young miss was never like this before," she would beat and scold them even more harshly, even going so far as to complain to my father. At first, my father would try to soothe her, but gradually he lost patience. He was already exhausted from handling court affairs daily, and returning home only to be plagued by Jiang Xinyan's issues added to his headaches. In the half-month since Jiang Xinyan entered the mansion, she did nothing but nitpick and complain. Moreover, she never considered this mortal couple as her real parents, let alone fulfilling filial duties toward them. I recall how often I used to stand by his side massaging his shoulders and inquiring after his well-being, personally cooking meals for him. Father's tears fell. How could he have believed Jiang Xinyan's words that day, thinking his own daughter capable of such cruelty? Even the Court of Judicial Review takes 3 days to decide a case. Yet at that time, how could he have been so blind as to let me leave alone at night? At this thought, father suddenly remembered, the maid who brought out the antidote that night didn't seem familiar. She hadn't been seen in the mansion before. The poison in my body might have been planted by someone, perhaps even without my knowledge. His gaze toward Jiang Xinyan gradually turned icy, though I was his biological daughter. My father was an incorruptible official with upright character who never forgot the slightest grievance. He would never tolerate his child being wicked, not even his own flesh and blood. Once my father's attitude toward Jiang Xinyan changed, the entire Prime Minister's residence followed suit in their treatment of her. When she once again expressed dissatisfaction with her meal and demanded it be remade, the servants brought her spoiled food instead. In her fury, she smashed all the bowls and chopsticks, yet our parents turned a blind eye. Only then did she realize something was wrong. Unable to resist cursing aloud, "You mere mortals dare to treat me so harshly. Just wait until I return." But before she could finish speaking, she was punished by the Book of Fate. If she wanted to reveal her identity, she'd have to see if the Book of Fate allowed it. Realizing she was now in a mortal body with no magic left, she found herself powerless against these mortals. Jiang Xinyan finally learned to behave better, obedient, quiet, and patiently waiting to be married. Everything would be fine as long as she married Jian Yuan. Once she overcame this trial of love, she would make these mortals pay. And so, Jiang Xinyan endured for 3 months until the day finally arrived, her wedding to Jian Yuan. On their wedding night, Jian Yuan didn't lift Jiang Xinyan's bridal veil and instead went alone to a brothel to drink. In his drunken stupor, he kept calling my name, then was found and brought back intoxicated into the bridal chamber. Seeing his reaction, Jiang Xinyan felt she had suffered an unbearable humiliation. Furious, she argued with Jian Yuan, "She's already dead. Why won't you look at me?" Jian Yuan simply turned over without even uttering a word. This made Jiang Xinyan feel like punching cotton. But then she noticed Jian Yuan's study was filled with portraits of me. Furious, she ordered them all to be burned. since Jiang Xinyan had just entered the Marquis's household and Jian Yuan was drunk, the servants had no choice but to obey her orders. The next day, Jian Yuan woke up to find the study in complete disarray. With a cold expression, he flicked his sleeves and left, never stepping into Jiang Xinyan's room again. The servants of the Marquis household noticed Jian Yuan's attitude toward her and learned that Jiang Xinyan was not favored. So they mocked and ridiculed her. A year passed in the blink of an eye, yet Jian Yuan still hadn't taken a single step into Jiang Xinyan's room. By this time, Jiang Xinyan's appearance had changed drastically from before, bearing not the slightest resemblance to me. Jian Yuan brought back a woman from outside who bore a slight resemblance to me. Jiang Xinyan finally sensed something was amiss. According to my fate, this shouldn't have happened to her. Jian Yuan and that woman reveled night after night, driving her mad with jealousy, nearly to the point of insanity. I watched with great interest from the rooftop. The god of death appeared by my side. In this lifetime, you were destined to share a bond of love. Since you've exchanged fates, you could still become happy spouses with him in the mortal world if you're willing. I gazed coldly at Jian Yuan, who had found a substitute. No need. I no longer require it. The moment I died, all my memories returned, and I realized I once harbored different feelings for Jian Yuan, but that was all in the past. Whether then or now, I do not indulge in love. Love is merely one of the 7 sufferings of mortals. After all my misfortunes began because of him, so now they should also end because of him. All the ghosts believed that for these 10,000 years, you stayed by my side serving me to earn a book of fate alteration. Little did they know you entered the endless purgatory to cultivate for 10,000 years and actually managed to walk out alive. It doesn't matter, they'll find out sooner or later. It's just unfortunate that the god of death will have to wait a while longer. The god of death smiled, his breathtakingly beautiful face a sight to behold in the underworld, because ghosts aren't good-looking. Either their faces are gaunt or their features are distorted, the more tragic their death, the uglier their spectral appearance. Only ghosts with formidable cultivation can alter their spectral appearance, but throughout the underworld, only the god of death possesses such cultivation. No matter, it just so happens that the person who used the life exchange scroll might be coming down soon. I'll go have some fun and buy you some time while I'm at it. The death god was referring to the fate immortal lord, the one who helped Jiang Xinyan exchange fates and overcome her tribulation. Thank you. I thanked the death god and continued watching Jiang Xinyan throwing a tantrum in frustration inside the room. Coincidentally, the Marquis's estate had just hired a new groom. According to fate, Jiang Xinyan still has several years before she embarks on the path of no return, but I'm too lazy to wait. With a raise of my hand, I altered the coachman's appearance, making him resemble Jian Yuan by 70%. Karma coiled around me once more, its dense, scorching sensation spreading throughout my entire body. It took me only a moment to refine and dissolve the karma. As I expected, Jiang Xinyan couldn't have Jian Yuan, and upon seeing that Jian Yuan had found a substitute, she noticed the groom bore a resemblance to him. Taking advantage of her drunken state, she mistook the groom for Jian Yuan, poured out her feelings, and ended up rolling into bed with him. In the 3rd month of their illicit affair, Jiang Xinyan was caught in bed with him and was diagnosed as pregnant. Jian Yuan had deliberately been cold to Jiang Xinyan because she had killed me, but no matter what, he couldn't tolerate her cuckolding him. Moreover, their marriage had been decreed by the emperor, making divorce impossible. He ordered someone to forcefully make Jiang Xinyan drink a bowl of safflower, subjecting her to the agony of losing her child. The prime minister's residence learned that Jiang Xinyan had lost her child and sent someone to inquire. Jian Yuan directly presented the testimony of the drunkard from that time, along with the results of his investigation into the so-called Jiang family wet nurse's home. That Jiang family wet nurse had already passed away from illness 8 years prior, completely contradicting Jiang Xinyan's claim that she had died unexpectedly just 2 years earlier. Jiang Xinyan's dance at my coming-of-age ceremony that day was captured in a painting, and within less than a year, her appearance had changed noticeably. She must have used dark magic. That's right. Those who cultivate immortality must not interfere with mortal karma at will, otherwise they will suffer from karmic entanglement before achieving immortality, losing all their cultivation, or even their lives. Thus, most mortals are unaware of the existence of gods and spirits, and even if they know, they have never seen them. This kind of transformative immortal art is regarded as sorcery in the eyes of mortals, or rather, to be precise, what benefits humans is considered immortal art, while what harms them is deemed demonic. All signs indicate that Jiang Xinyan framed me. using sorcery to steal my identity. My parents were already remorseful for losing me, and after learning the truth, they completely abandoned Jiang Xinyan. They merely left these words: "She is now a married woman, the wife of the Marquis. So the Marquis should deal with her as he sees fit." Jian Yuan gripped Jiang Xinyan's chin, "Which, back then you used sorcery to frame Xu Yan, leaving her homeless, and then hired people to harm her. Now, why don't you try casting your spells on me?" After observing for over a year, he could confirm that Jiang Xinyan could no longer use any sorcery. Since that was the case, he had nothing left to fear. Jiang Xinyan enjoyed illicit affairs, so he made sure to send beggars and gamblers to her bed every day to torment her. Day after day, whenever she became pregnant, she would take a dose of safflower to abort it. Jiang Xinyan, unable to bear the humiliation, wanted to bite her tongue and end her life. At this moment, I appeared before Jiang Xinyan. Seeing me again, Jiang Xinyan was shocked. "Are you human or ghost?" But when she raised her hand, she couldn't touch me. I smiled faintly. "Of course I'm a ghost. How else could I torment you? It's your doing." Jiang Xinyan realized her life-swapping contract had gone wrong and spat out a mouthful of blood in fury. "How dare you treat me like this? Do you even know who I am? Just wait until I know." I stared at Jiang Xinyan's face and enunciated each word clearly. "Princess Xin Yuan." Jiang Xinyan stared at me in astonishment. You knew everything." I stood up, looking down at Jiang Xinyan from above. "The heavens possess the Book of Fate Exchange, the earth holds the Ledger of Destiny Alteration. To satisfy your own desires, you forcibly swapped my fate, leading me to a tragic death. How could I not know? From the birth of primordial chaos, the world was divided into 3 realms: heaven, earth, and mankind. The heavens form the celestial realm, where the pure qi rises upward, capable of cleansing bones and refining marrow. Cultivation there progresses 1,000 miles a day, granting the power to overturn heaven and earth. Some are born with celestial bones and, through fate, may enter the celestial realm, thus transcending the mortal world. After cultivating for thousands of years, one can possess the power to overturn heaven and earth. The earth constitutes the ghost realm, where turbid qi sinks downward, filled with karmic forces. Invading spirits endure torment as if scorched by raging flames, making ghostly cultivation extremely arduous. A single misstep can lead to the soul scattering into nothingness. The mortal realm is a place where souls undergo trials through reincarnation, filled with suffering. Thus, immortals always stand aloof above both realms, viewing all beings as mere ants. Yet there are both advantages and disadvantages. The heavenly Tao forbids the balance of the 3 realms from being disrupted, establishing immutable rules. The land of trials must not be influenced by the realms of heaven and earth. Thus neither immortals nor ghosts may arbitrarily alter mortal fates. If immortals wish to temper their hearts through trials, they must first report to the heavenly Tao before they can enter the mortal world in human form to undergo tribulations. Violators will be punished by having their immortal bones stripped away. Apart from this, only the Book of Fate Exchange and the Ledger of Destiny Alteration can achieve such changes swiftly. However, both require paying an extremely heavy price before they can be used. Though immortals are powerful, they struggle to bear offspring. Under the constraints of heavenly law, the number of immortals is limited. Princess Xin Yuan is the child born to the heavenly emperor and empress after hundreds of thousands of years of marriage, exhausting countless rare treasures. Born in the immortal realm and having never experienced hardship, she must descend to the mortal world to undergo trials and endure 7 sufferings before officially ascending as an immortal. The heavenly emperor and empress couldn't bear to see her suffer, so they gave her the Book of Fate Exchange. I wasn't the first person whose fate she exchanged. The Book of Altered Fate, the Book of Altered Fate. Jiang Xinyan muttered self-mockingly after hearing this. "The god of death actually gave you the Book of Altered Fate. What exactly is your relationship?" The current Jiang Xinyan doesn't yet have memories from both lifetimes. She'll only regain them after her death, but I won't let her die so quickly. "Don't ask, you'll find out later." I gently patted Jiang Xinyan's face. "For now, you'll have to enjoy the 7-kill fate you exchanged from me." As I finished speaking, I couldn't help but laugh triumphantly. If Princess Xinyan had properly submitted her fate book and endured the tribulations of reincarnation to transcend her immortal calamity, that would have been one thing, but she had to use this fate exchange book to make others suffer in her stead, carrying the memories of your lofty status as Princess Xinyan while being defiled by the very ants you look down upon. That must be even more unbearable. Unbearable doesn't even begin to describe it. She thought so highly of herself, commanding wind and rain at her whim in the immortal realm. to be repeatedly defiled by the very ants she despised. With the mastermind being none other than immortal Lord Qingyun, Princess Xinyan's most beloved, it was beyond torment. I'm afraid her immortal path ends here. Forcibly cultivating would require overcoming a heart tribulation, fail to pass it, and she'll be consumed by karmic flames, her soul scattered to the winds. My father and mother will never let you get away with this. Princess Xian Yuan glared at me viciously. It's just one short lifetime. Once this life ends, I'll make sure you, this insignificant ant, die a miserable death. I straightened my back. Yes, I'm parentless, born of heaven and earth, existing beyond the three realms, unlike you with your noble parents, but I'm no longer the ant you could trample at will. Without another word, I raised my hand and kindly brushed away the bloodstains from her body. You'll have to endure 18 more years of this mortal suffering. Forcing an early end would strip you of your immortal bones, condemning you eternally to become the lowly ant you despise most. Enjoy your fate, Princess Xian Yuan. With a cold glare, I turned and left without looking back. My enmity with Jiang Xinyan didn't stem solely from that life-swapping incident. The three realms of heaven, earth, and humanity all possess souls, but I exist beyond these realms. I am a spirit creature, a naturally grown heart-bond flower, born of heaven and earth without parents. Beings like me, before gaining spiritual awareness, are typically regarded as medicinal herbs by the three realms, but I was lucky, growing up at the entrance to the immortal realm. By chance, I consumed a wisp of pure energy that leaked through the cracks between the three realms. Gaining spiritual awareness and taking form, a minor spirit like me possesses feeble magic. Sometimes I might not even be a match for a human. I had to avoid being devoured while cautiously cultivating my powers. Dodging and hiding, treading carefully, I dreamed only of one day ascending to immortality and reaching that land abundant with pure energy. When I achieve mastery in cultivation, I'll be able to soar freely across the three realms, no longer confined to a single domain. Until I met immortal Lord An Yuan, Jian Yuan. Before his mortal tribulation, he was the war god of heaven, mending the rifts in the immortal realm and purging the leaking turbid energies. With formidable magic power and striking good looks, Princess Xinyan fell for him at first sight. Most immortals possess carefree and unrestrained temperaments, unlike mortals who often have no choice but to accept arranged marriages. Moreover, as the god of war, he naturally has his own methods to mend rifts and cleanse impurities without harming himself. If he were to shirk responsibility, who would take on this troublesome task? Even the heavenly emperor and empress couldn't force a match, making Jian Yuan the one man Xian Yuan could never obtain, until Jian Yuan was injured while repairing the turbid energy and fell outside the crevice, where I rescued him. I used my flower core to heal his wounds, and in gratitude, he took me to the celestial realm to cultivate, hoping to help me achieve immortality sooner. He was powerful yet gentle, and I, having just taken human form with little worldly experience, couldn't help but develop feelings for him. He tacitly allowed my companionship. Upon learning of my existence, Xian Yuan became insanely jealous. I was just a minor spirit whose name couldn't even be found in the records of the three realms, unworthy of reincarnation, yet I obtained the man she could never have. Taking advantage of Jian Yuan's absence while he was purging foul energies, she seized my true form and refined me into her beauty elixir. By the time Jian Yuan returned, only a wisp of my fading spirit remained. Out of guilt, Jian Yuan used his immortal power to mend my soul and sent me to the underworld for nurturing. There, I became a manjasaka flower without consciousness, withering immediately if plucked by anyone. Yet no ghost in the underworld would inexplicably pluck a manjasaka flower devoid of consciousness. They were the only scenery visible in the karma-filled underworld. The price Jian Yuan paid for defying fate to save me was his own cultivation continuously regressing, falling from divinity, and being forced to enter the cycle of reincarnation for renewed trials. After nurturing my soul in the underworld for many years, I finally regained consciousness. Perhaps because of his actions, the Book of Destiny recorded a romantic bond between us in this lifetime. Xian Yuan couldn't forget him, and through the Book of Destiny, she saw his love tribulation, naturally discovering his act of saving me as well. Coincidentally, she still had the tribulation of love among her 7 sufferings left to endure, so she sought the help of the Fate Immortal to descend to the mortal world and change her destiny to undergo the trial. It wasn't just to make Jian Yuan develop feelings for her in one lifetime, but also to torment me. How could an ant like me dare to compete with her? Under her torment in that lifetime, I became filled with resentment, unable to reincarnate, and nearly dissipated my soul in the underworld. How could I not seek revenge for the hatred of 2 lifetimes? Watching Jiang Xinyan live painfully in her so-called insignificant existence brings me immense satisfaction, but watching for too long becomes dull, so I occasionally wander around aimlessly, though I haven't returned to the underworld. The underworld lacks the vibrancy of the mortal realm, filled with karmic forces and the agonized screams of malevolent spirits. Every ghostly face is unbearably hideous. The only scenery worth seeing is the red spider lilies. In the 3rd year of Jiang Xinyan's torment, a man blocked my path. He looked at me with cold indifference. You used the life exchange register. Oh, discovered by the fate scribe. I smiled. The other party was none other than the fate immortal lord who oversees the book of destiny. The reason I chose the day of the hairpin ceremony to enter the mirror of reincarnation and alter fate was because the fate immortal lord could consult the book of destiny and would naturally detect any changes made to destiny. I needed to exploit the time difference and alter fate before he descended to the mortal realm with Xian Yuan to exchange destinies, because if I had acted even a day earlier, he would have been able to see traces of my fate alteration in the book of destiny from the beginning. Tiny ants dare to play tricks on an immortal maiden. Now that the god of death has returned to the underworld to handle important matters, let's see who can still protect you. Clearly, Xian Yuan himself was aware of the impact this lifetime's experiences would bring. The fate immortal lord cast a spell at me, and I swiftly retreated to evade his attack. His magic landed on the mortal realm's ground. Mortals cannot see our battle, only sensing the heavens darkening and the earth shaking violently. The earth dragon is turning over. Run for your lives. Meanwhile, the fate immortal lord before me coughed up blood, entangled by karmic retribution. TSK TSK TSK, let me see how many mortals will perish from this strike of yours, immortal lord, and how much karmic retribution you'll have to bear. I shook my head regretfully, facing my provocation. The fate immortal's gaze turned sinister. She is Princess Xinyan, of noble status. How dare a lowly ant like you treat her with such disrespect? Noble status, I laughed heartily. Who is born with noble status? Just because she's lucky enough to be Princess Xinyan, does that make her more noble than others? Don't think I don't know how many treasures the heavenly emperor and empress have expended to conceal her existence from the heavenly Tao. His face turned cold. It's just that you, relying on heaven's favor and being born with immortal bones, look down upon mortals and spirits with arrogance. Today, let's see what you can do to me. I had already gathered the karmic fire in my hand. If he dared to strike again, I would never allow his next attack to land in the mortal realm. But the star of fate, after looking down at the mortals below, feared accumulating more karmic retribution and turned to leave. TCH, coward. I looked down and realized things weren't going well either. So I stopped paying attention to Jiang Xinyan's affairs and returned to the underworld. The underworld remained the same as always, with souls still queuing up, but now there were many more voices of wronged ghosts in my ears. The flowers by the death guide's ears remain vibrant, her stunning face tilted as she grips a ghost's chin, forcing it to drink the soup. Drink it all, damn it, no matter how bitter it is. You reaped what you sowed in your past life, so now you're destined to suffer. Noticing my return, her tone instantly softened. Oh, little flower, you're back. I shuddered and suggested, how about adding some sugar to the soup next time? Might make it taste better. The soul guide wiped away tears, weeping pitifully. The underworld has no candy, only karma. I casually tossed her a pack of mortal-bought sugar cakes before entering the death god's mansion. The death god looked at the newly arrived ghost, pinching the bridge of his nose. You made a move, not me, it was him. He came looking for trouble as soon as you left, I quickly explained. Nothing bad happened, right? The god of death sneered. No, just over 100 people who shouldn't have died. I nodded eagerly like a pecking chick. Then he can keep his position as the Star Lord of Fate a little longer. Those ghosts should thank me for ending their cycle of suffering ahead of time. 100 or so people. The heavenly Tao wouldn't even notice. If the number grew too large, the heavenly Tao would descend with divine punishment, stripping him of his position as the Star Lord of Fate and barring him from ever reading the Book of Destiny again. But they're so noisy. Death pinched the bridge of his nose. She could hear the voices of every newly arrived vengeful ghost. This wouldn't be resolved any time soon. She won't let this go easily, I said, sitting down before death. The immortal realm and the ghost realm are opposing forces. When one grows stronger, the other weakens. When pure energy increases, impure energy decreases, and vice versa. Immortals rely on pure energy for cultivation. Exposure to impure energy can cause their cultivation to regress, and in severe cases, even corrupt their divine bones. Moreover, impure energy also affects the mortal world. If left unchecked, it will inevitably lead to great calamity. A great battle can indeed consume the turbid energy of the ghost realm, but the immortal realm will also suffer significant losses. 10 million years ago there was indeed one incident. The previous god of death got beaten so badly he packed his bags and fled overnight, leaving me stranded here. Well then, you might be next. I casually swiped the small finger bone lying beside the god of death, a ghostly snack, not particularly tasty, but crunchy as hell, making crisp cracking sounds when bitten, mostly gifts offered by ghost cultivators. Oh, that won't happen, I'd run too. The god of death grinned at me. I shivered. Is it over? Death asked. No, there are still 14 years left, referring to Xan Yuan's current lifetime. Then you should spend 14 years in the Avicii hell too, otherwise I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand the beatings. Alright, I nodded. It's not like I haven't been there before. For me, 14 years passed in the blink of an eye. Emerging from the endless purgatory, I immediately checked on Xan Yuan's condition. After 7 years of torture by Jian Yuan, her body was already ruined beyond childbearing, tormented beyond recognition. Jian Yuan divorced her on the grounds of her infertility and remarried, while she, under his control, had no power to fight back and could not return to the Prime Minister's residence. The Fate Immortals suffered karmic retribution and did not intervene to help her. Not long after leaving the Marquis's residence, she remarried a fifth-ranked vice minister. Her new husband thought marrying her would gain him the support of the Prime Minister's residence, but to his surprise, the Prime Minister's residence showed no concern for her. After discovering she had difficulty conceiving, he often resorted to beating her. After she reported him to the authorities, he lost his official position and treated her even worse. Unable to endure it any longer, she fled. But not long after escaping, she was sold into a brothel and soon contracted a venereal disease. In her final years, she was tortured beyond recognition, yet she stubbornly refused to die, only occasionally revealing her hatred. I sneered. This was exactly how she had tormented me in my previous life. When her time came, she finally succumbed to illness in a back alley, walking the same tragic path I had taken in my past life. At the moment of my death, I saw a golden light illuminating the sky. This was the celestial phenomenon of an immortal's ascension. She actually managed to overcome her tribulation of love. It seems that after enduring Jian Yuan's torment in this lifetime, she has let go, no longer clinging to love, filled only with hatred for me. Soon I stopped laughing, because the ghost realm was under attack. The three realms stood in a tripartite balance. There was a separate passage between the ghost realm and the heavenly realm, called Chaos Creek, filled with chaotic energy. And chaotic energy was the undifferentiated essence of purity and turbidity. Neither immortals nor ghosts can cultivate here, making it the most suitable battlefield. Jiang Shuyan, come out. Xan Yuan stood majestically before the crowd of immortals. I slowly walked out. Here to thank me. You're welcome. Congratulations on your ascension to Upper Immortal, Princess Xan Yuan. Xan Yuan looked behind me and sneered. Why are you alone? Doesn't the god of death dare to back you up? I nodded. I'll back myself up. Seeing my attitude, Xan Yuan angrily said, You're just a mere spirit. How dare you look down on me like this? Are you that impressive? I asked calmly. Xan Yuan's face darkened. Jiang Shuyan, who do you think you are? My father is the Heavenly Emperor, my mother is the Heavenly Empress, and I am the only one in all realms who inherits the bloodline of two true immortals. I glanced at the crowd of immortals behind Xan Yuan. Esteemed immortals, each of you is uniquely blessed, possessing immortal bones. You've devoted tens of thousands of years to cultivation and endured the suffering of 100 mortal reincarnations to reach this day, yet, the woman before you stands above you merely because her parents' achievements overshadow yours. Are you truly content with this? My words stunned everyone. Soon, one of Xan Yuan's admirers spoke up. Princess Xan Yuan's status is noble. How could we minor immortals ever compare? Do all of you agree with this statement like he does? I swept my gaze across them. Xan Yuan had brought thousands of immortals with her, each with distinct facial features. Clearly, not everyone agrees with this viewpoint. Although born with immortal bones, most immortals who have endured the suffering of reincarnation have tasted the bitterness of disdain. A female immortal couldn't help but step forward. We became immortals to enjoy eternal life and seek freedom, yet today we gather here to address the matter of purging foul energy. The dense miasma of the ghost realm has already unsettled the three realms. That is only natural. The primordial chaos divides into three realms, splitting the chaotic chi into two, and establishing the Millennium War precisely to dissipate the turbid energy. This battle is inevitable for us. But before it begins again, the three realms still have some matters to settle. Star-Lord Siming, do you admit your guilt? I shouted sternly. The crowd froze for a moment, never expecting me to accuse Star-Lord Siming. I took out the Book of Altered Fate. The Book of Altered Fate is also one of the Books of Destiny. The three realms all know of the Books of Destiny, yet few realize there are 3 volumes. The Celestial Realm governs the Book of Exchanged Fate. The Netherworld oversees the Book of Altered Fate, while the Book of Heavenly Mandate resides in the mortal realm, following the natural order and dividing itself autonomously. Aside from the Book of Heavenly Mandate, the other 2 books operate under strict rules. Each use must be reported to the keeper of the other book, and no individual may be subjected to their power twice. Yet, Lord Siming, driven by personal gain, has used them on Xinyuan a full 5 times. As I spoke, a bolt of lightning streaked across the sky. It is divine punishment, but whether it was celestial punishment or ghostly punishment, no one knew. Xinyuan panicked, glanced at Siming, and said to me, You have no proof. Do you want me to elaborate? Xinyuan, I smiled slightly. In your first life, unwilling to endure the pain of separation, you exchanged fates with a woman. She was destined to marry a loving husband and live happily ever after. But after the exchange, her groom left for the battlefield on their wedding night. She waited faithfully for 10 years, only to receive tragic news, passing away at the tender age of 28. A deafening roar echoed as the Star-Lord of Fate realized something, his gaze fixed intently on me, his expression turning grim. In your second life, unwilling to endure the suffering of illness, you exchanged fates with a female general. She was meant to ride gallantly across battlefields, full of vigor, but after the exchange, she was confined to her sickbed day after day. Forced into marriage, her poor health made her unwelcome in her husband's family, and she eventually departed with regrets. Another thunderous boom resounded as the storm clouds gathered thicker and darker. In your third life, unwilling to endure the bitterness of resentment and hatred, you exchanged fates with a young girl. She was destined for a lifetime of fulfillment, but after your exchange, she was falsely accused, imprisoned unjustly, and died waiting in vain for her innocence to be proven. Thunder continued to flash incessantly, but I did not pause. In your fourth life, unwilling to endure the suffering of unfulfilled desires, you exchanged fates with another girl. She was meant to be a heavenly blessing, bringing joy to her family, yet, because of your exchange, she never received her family's affection in her lifetime. Her beloved was forced into exile, and she couldn't even save her own gravely ill child. At this moment, with thunder pressing down overhead, I looked at the Fate Immortal, whose expression had turned grim. Immortal Lord, have the thousands of immortals behind you not endured such hardships? Yet under your arrangements, Princess Xinyan has almost always lived to a ripe old age, passing without regrets. With such a temperament, how can she become a superior immortal? Upon hearing this, the expressions of the assembled immortals darkened slightly. Though 100 lifetimes have passed, like seas changing into mulberry fields, those sufferings were truly endured by them. Xinyan gnashed her teeth in anger. You're just a lowly spirit, you have no proof, to slander an immortal. Do you know your crime? Evidence. I raised my eyes, gripping the Book of Fate Alteration, and shouted, All ghosts, come forth. In an instant, thousands of ghosts appeared behind me, each shrouded in murky energy, their resentment palpable. I stared coldly at Xinyuan. I am the new god of death. My word is the evidence. The god of death wields the Book of Fate Alteration and the Mirror of Reincarnation, which is why I could enter the Mirror of Reincarnation and withdraw unscathed. Ordinary ghosts entering the wheel mirror at will would disrupt the operation of the Book of Fate, and they would only have one lifetime. Besides seeking revenge, I must personally find evidence spanning 2 lifetimes. Only by experiencing it firsthand as the new god of death can the heavenly Tao bear witness and confirm the Star-Lord of Fate's unauthorized tampering with destinies. Heavenly Tao, why haven't you delivered punishment yet? I lifted my head. The Fate Immortal Sovereign clenched his teeth. No, I didn't. But thunderclouds gathered above him, and countless bolts of lightning struck down toward him. Every word I spoke was true, corroborated by the Book of Fate and the Mirror of Reincarnation. Combined with his recent wrongful attack on the mortal realm, leaving traces of karmic retribution on him, he deserved this punishment. Si Ming, Xinyuan saw Siming being punished because of her and wanted to rush forward. You've just ascended to immortality. Entering the immortal punishment hall would scatter your soul to the winds. I murmured darkly. As soon as the words were spoken, Xian Yuan dared not approach any closer. The Fate Star looked up at Xian Yuan and gave him a faint smile. Xian Yuan, it's alright. The next moment, the Book of Fate detached from him and drifted into the distance. It would naturally seek out a new destiny overseer. Without the Book of Fate, he is now just an ordinary immortal lord. But then came a bolt of lightning that shattered his immortal bones, and his soul drifted into my palm, directly entering the ghost realm to prepare for reincarnation. The heavenly Tao has finished its punishment, now it's your turn. I stepped closer to Xian Yuan. Xian Yuan realized I was no longer the monster of old and shouted, "Father, Mother, do you know why the heavenly Emperor and Empress didn't come?" I asked slowly. Xian Yuan frowned deeply, because they couldn't withstand the heavenly Tao, and they knew you shouldn't have existed in the first place. It was they who used forbidden arts to give birth to you, shielding you from the heavenly Tao, just as Jian Yuan studied how to cleanse turbid qi without suffering backlash. Each immortal has their own expertise, some are formations, others are spells. These two are seriously studying how to make a baby. You shouldn't have celestial bones in the first place. The reason you possess them is because an immortal died because of you, I said coldly. Now I will extract these bones that should never have existed. Restraining Xian Yuan, she screamed in panic, "Save me, all of you must save me. My father and mother will reward you handsomely. Even if you are the god of death, you cannot be so disrespectful to the imperial princess." Some immortals still couldn't help but step forward. I raised my head to look at the crowd. Do you know that immortal bones are predestined in number? Only when one is missing will another be replenished. The immortals were puzzled. They were not the ones in charge of the Book of Fate, and many were newly ascended immortals, so naturally, they didn't know. Every immortal bone appears on a reincarnated individual who has endured trials for 100 lifetimes and possesses the fortune of the heavenly Tao. She is neither a reincarnated person nor has the fortune of the heavenly Tao. So where did the immortal bone on her come from? Do you really think the heavenly Emperor and Empress were researching ordinary baby making? They were extracting immortal bones from other celestial beings and implanting them into their mortal-born daughter, yet these fools still worship those two as sovereigns. With that, my hand reached into Xian Yuan's waist and abdomen, extracting a jade-like translucent immortal bone. He kicked Xian Yuan into the ghost realm with cold indifference, unwilling to endure the suffering of mortal reincarnation. She would now have to bear it fully without her immortal bones. The remaining immortals exchanged glances, looking at me and the ghost generals behind me. "So, are we still fighting?" I commanded with a single order. Hit. The heavens darkened as the two realms went to war, a battle fought not for victory or defeat, but for the sake of all three realms. The demonic general's miasma grew increasingly dense, and once it reached a critical level, all three realms would be affected. The great war raged on for 7 days and 7 nights. As the miasma surrounding the demonic generals was nearly exhausted, the opposing immortals also began to show signs of exhaustion. They thought they were no match and were about to meet their end, but I glanced at the situation of the ghost generals and turned to lead the ghosts back to the ghost realm. Only then did I realize it wasn't that the ghost realm couldn't win, it simply didn't need to fight anymore. The turbid energy of the ghost realm is like branches that keep growing. Once they exceed the limit, they need pruning. The immortal realm is the pruning blade prepared by the heavenly Tao. As for the outside world boasting about the celestial realm's victory, driving the ghost realm into retreat and sealing it once more, I pay no mind. It's just empty fame. Returning to the ghost realm, the former god of death had been waiting for me for a long time. Seeing that the miasma on the ghost generals behind me had all been purified, she gave me a look of gratitude. "You've done well. They've followed me for millions of years, and now I can take them to be reborn." The ghost generals cultivate using turbid energy, containing the underworld's miasma within their own souls. Day and night, they endure the torment of purgatorial flames, unable to reincarnate. Now that this turbid energy has been purified, they too can find liberation. Perhaps after countless cycles of reincarnation, they may even be chosen by the heavenly Tao, bestowed with immortal bones, and ascend to the celestial realm. I opened the Book of Fate. Through the 6 realms of reincarnation, I'll arrange a good destination for them. She looked at me. "Now that I'm no longer the god of death, you can call me by my name, Qinghuan." I raised my eyes to look at her. Everywhere in the mortal world holds Qinghuan's joy. For some, reincarnation is suffering. But only after wandering through the ghost realm does one truly taste its flavor. Qinghuan subconsciously picked up the finger bone beside her and brought it to her mouth, then quickly put it back upon remembering. "I heard you gave the death guide a bag of sugar cakes. When I reach the mortal world, I'll have to try them too." if you find mortal life too bitter, you can come to me, I can make an exception to change your fate. I quickly looked at her. I think bitterness is also a flavor worth tasting. Qinghuan finished speaking and left with the ghost generals who had followed her for millennia. Meanwhile, I needed to select new ghost generals from among the numerous spirits. Standing amidst the crowd of ghosts, I spoke up, "Who among you is willing to become the new ghost general?" The soul guide leaned close to my ear and whispered, "When will it be my turn to pass on this position?" I smiled without saying a word. The time will come when a new soul guide naturally appears. At this moment, a pale-faced woman in plain clothes stepped forward from the crowd of spirits and said softly, "Me." The soul guide was taken aback upon seeing her and recalled her name. "You bear no taint of impurity. Shouldn't you have already reincarnated?" Shu. After speaking, he turned his gaze toward me. Suddenly remembering something, I immediately corrected myself. Hashin, the god of death. My earliest name was Hashin. When my soul was nurtured in the underworld, the Book of Fate had no record of me, so even if I queued, I couldn't be reincarnated. It was Jiang Shuyan. She gave her chance at rebirth to me. She was the woman whose fate had been swapped by Xian Yuan for several lifetimes. She said the mortal world was too bitter, and she no longer wished to go, so she gave it to me, allowing me to experience the mortal world once. Thus, in that lifetime, I was called Jiang Shuyan. My soul imprint appeared in the Book of Fate, and since I still carried Jian Yuan's aura, I naturally became part of his trial of love. After death, my soul nearly dissipated completely. It wasn't until I entered the endless purgatory and obtained the Book of Fate and the Mirror of Reincarnation that I realized my fate had been swapped. Now she looks at me, "The mortal world is too bitter. I'd rather become Death's ghost general," with her speaking up. More and more ghosts chose to become new ghost generals. I know the suffering of the mortal world, but not everyone can possess immortal bones. Now that I am the god of death, I can still alleviate a fraction of the suffering in the mortal world. Extra story, the new Star Lord Immortal. In the 3rd year of my tenure, I met the new Fate Immortal of the Celestial Realm. It was none other than Jian Yuan. He arranged to meet me at Hundun Shi. His eyes filled with guilt when he looked at me. "I owe you an apology, though you are now the god of death. I know you must have suffered greatly." He had also been to the underworld and undergone reincarnation. He knew that the Avicii hell was filled with the fires of karma, although it was said that those who passed through Avicii hell would become the next god of death. But when burned by the fires of karma, it felt as if thousands of knives were piercing the body, subjecting one to lingering death, constantly facing the danger of soul annihilation. The endless purgatory is filled with the flames of karma. I shook my head and looked at him. "You've done nothing wrong by me. Saving you back then was my choice. If anything, I should be thanking you. Saving him back then was my own willing choice, just as it was my own decision to follow him into the immortal realm. Perhaps fate had its own plans for me as well." The position of the Fate Immortal is chosen by the heavenly Tao. The god of death, however, must be someone who has endured the endless purgatory. Only by surviving the endless purgatory can a ghost cultivator gain the ability to refine karmic power, enabling them to control the Book of Fate alteration and the Mirror of Reincarnation. Most ghost cultivators cannot pass through the endless purgatory. They turn to ashes the moment they enter. The reason I became the god of death is that Jian Yuan sent the only remaining wisp of my soul to the other shore flower in the underworld. My true form turned into a flower in the underworld that withers upon being plucked, reincarnated under the name Jiang Shuyan. In that life where my fate was swapped, I nearly burned to death in the flames of karma because my aura was too tainted. The only way to save myself was to enter the endless purgatory and come out alive. I never expected that after entering the Avicii hell, despite enduring the agony of being burned by flames, the purgatorial fire tempered my soul. My new body, the red spider lily, bloomed even more vibrantly in the Avicii hell, and only then did I discover the secret to passing through it. In the past, I wanted to become an immortal because I believed immortals were powerful, and I didn't want to be at others' mercy. But now I understand that possessing great strength isn't limited to the path of becoming an immortal. Of course, I won't tell anyone this secret. The immortal realm has factions, all because there are too many who have attained immortality. Where there are many people, there are desires. Where there are desires, there will be conflicts, and where there are conflicts, the weak will always become sacrifices. Just like how the heavenly emperor and empress stripped the immortal bones from innocent immortals and placed them upon Xian Yuan, if everyone in the underworld were qualified to become a Grim Reaper, such a situation might arise. Therefore, there can only be one Grim Reaper in the underworld. But I didn't explain it in detail to Jian Yuan and changed the subject. He's already the Fate Immortal Lord in charge of the Book of Destiny, so why would he still take risks for Xian Yuan? Jian Yuan is now the new Star Lord of Destiny. He slowly uttered 5 words. Immortals are also human, though having tasted the bitterness of human emotions and desires, one would still harbor cravings, power, strength, love. Jian Yuan looked at me. When the turbid energy appears again, there will inevitably be another great battle. I should go. I interrupted Jian Yuan's attempt to speak. We've shared bonds across 2 lifetimes. But now we're no longer just a little sprite and an immortal lord. We each have our own responsibilities. As the god of death, I cannot leave the ghost realm at all times, otherwise the turbid energy would riot, and the same goes for him. Farewell, immortal Lord An Yuan. Farewell, Extra, the soul guide. I've been working as a soul guide in the underworld for 100,000 years, to be honest. Staying in the underworld for too long really dampens one's mood. The ghosts here are all quite ugly. Tainted by impurity, most maintaining their deathly appearances from when they were alive, missing arms, broken legs, and disfigured faces. Even those who were intact were either pale as snow or gaunt as death, myself included. I spent 100,000 years as an old hag, but fortunately, the underworld lacked vitality, and everyone was equally ugly. I wasn't the only one. The only one in the underworld who maintained eternal youth was the god of death, the moment she appeared. All the ghosts couldn't help but stand on tiptoe to catch a glimpse, but the god of death rarely showed herself. She had been in the underworld for too long, longer than I had, millions of years, except for her face. Most of the time she resembled a ghost more than any other specter, dull, as lifeless as the underworld itself. I don't like this feeling, so I'll shout loudly, deliberately making the soul guide soup bitter, causing the ghosts waiting for reincarnation to complain incessantly. Making the underworld livelier, the new god of death never appeared. No ghost could pass the test of the endless purgatory, most perishing into ashes amidst the karmic flames, until she appeared. When she first arrived, she was just a tiny wisp of spirit. A celestial lord endured the pain of being eroded by turbid energy to nurture her within the red spider lilies. To be honest, I despise immortals. They always look down from their lofty heights, treating mortals as ants and scorning ghost generals even more. If it weren't for ghost generals suppressing the ghost realm, chaos would engulf all 3 realms. What right do they have to be so arrogant? Yet this immortal lord, I simply cannot bring myself to dislike. I've witnessed him countless times through the cycles of reincarnation, birth, aging, sickness, death, the suffering of separation, resentment, and unrequited love. He has tasted them all. But never once has resentment tainted his soul. In every lifetime, he repays hatred with virtue. He is the most deserving being I've ever seen to be called a true immortal. He nurtured this tiny spirit essence by the weak water, and I would often go to check on it, watering it with weak water, watching it grow bigger and bigger. Finally, one day, her soul was fully restored, and she took human form. She was beautiful, possessing the most striking face in the underworld, second only to the god of death. Her eyes were very bright. She said she no longer wanted to become an immortal, as there were few good people and many bad ones in the celestial realm. This idea aligns with mine. I like her, but she wants to go to the mortal world to experience what it's like to be human. However, her name isn't in the Book of Fate, so she can't enter the cycle of reincarnation. Forcing her way in would only scatter her soul. She often squats by my pot to drink my soup. She also said my soup was bitter. I told her the underworld has no sugar, but she didn't know what sugar was. She'd never seen or tasted it. Not long after, a woman arrived on the Naiha bridge who refused to be reincarnated. She was very curious about her. By the time I took a short nap, they had both disappeared. When I saw her again, she was on the verge of death, much like when that immortal lord had brought her here, almost dead, yet she resolutely chose to enter the endless inferno. I felt somewhat regretful, thinking I would never see her again. Never did I expect her to become the first ghost in millennia to emerge from the endless inferno. The Grim Reaper's eyes lit up the moment he saw her emerge. She gave me an undying red spider lily, and I truly cherished this gift, perhaps because her mood had improved. Even the soup she made tasted better. Passing hungry ghosts couldn't resist having an extra bowl or 2. Rumors say that she changed her own fate through the reincarnation mirror, allowing her to re-experience the life of her past life. However, after coming back, she complained that my candy was bitter, rolling her eyes. Hadn't she known all along that there was no candy in the underworld? But this time, she gave me a pack of sweet rice cakes, very sweet. I seemed to have suddenly remembered the sweetness of the mortal world, and because of this sweetness, all the bitterness seems insignificant. So I asked her when a new death guide would appear. She told me, soon. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.